So Cline have just released Cline version 3.15, which you can see it's just been released literally a few days ago. And this basically comes with some cool new features, including task timeline, Gemini implicit caching, and new community documents. All right. So basically, the main thing here is the storyboard of your conversation. So you can basically flick through the storyboard of how Cline tackled a complex task. So you can see an example here of how it works step by step. You can flick through all the chapters within the task and also what Cline actually did for you to tackle the task, right? So it's basically like a visual storyboard into your task header. And then also you can easily like search through what you've done previously as well. So let me show you exactly how this works step by step. If you've never used Cline, just go to Visual Studio Code. Then from here, we're going to go over to Cline. And here's an example of a task I actually did previously, right? So Cline is actually free to use. And if you select a free API, then you can use this for free. So you can code with it for free and you can open it up for free as well. And additionally, Visual Studio Code is free as well. Now, if you want to use it for free, just make sure that inside the settings here, you have a free API selected, right? So for example, Gemini 2.0 Flash, experimental free, you can select down there. If we type in Gemini, there's a bunch of free options inside here. So for example, like preview, free, and also Quen is there as well. That's available for free. So the other thing you can do here is you can select Google Gemini inside the list. And then these are actually free APIs you can plug in as well. All right, so for example, Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview, we can hit save on that and then start coding with it. So for example, you can see the task timeline here, see what it did step by step, and all the different chapters, plus what it did. Next thing they did is implement Gemini implicit caching. So with Gemini implicit caching, basically, this is making like a cheaper way to use Gemini, right? So if you're using the new models and you're limited by tokens and you're running out of tokens or you're spending too much money, then they have this implicit caching option, right? Which basically automates saving money for you when you use the API. So here's an example of the tweet. This is landed and just saves you money when you're coding. Now, if you want to see all the changes that have been made, you can check out their changelog on GitHub. You can see all the differences right here. So there's a bunch of changes in 3.15. And here's an example. So if we go over to Cline inside Visual Studio Code, we can start coding out. And so if we say, okay, run the command, and then we'll just switch over to Open Router. And there we go, for example, this is a game that I actually coded before. We're ready to go on that. Easy peasy. By the way, if you're wondering how I created this game, let me show you step by step how it works. So if we go over to Visual Studio Code, this was a super long one. Like creating games takes absolutely ages if you want to get it right. Otherwise, it just creates something that's too simple. So basically, the original prompt was build out a 3JS runner game for SEO. And the other thing that you can do inside here that I quite like doing now is if you're coding something and you need like the UI to be a bit more interesting, what you can do is you can go over to, for example, ChatGPT, get an image of what you want the main characters to look like, and then plug this in. So actually previously what I did, if we open this up, is actually got some images from ChatGPT and then asked it to create the background style, for example, right? So you can see here I said, make the background style more like this, and then inserted an image generated with ChatGPT, right? So you can use that inside your prompting, and then you tend to get better outputs. That's what I've seen so far. You can see an example. You can also open it up in the browser. So you can see here it actually opened up the file inside the browser to give us a example, and then it can recode based on that. So pretty simple, works nicely with Gemini 2.5 Pro, really easy to implement, and then you can build whatever you want. Jenat says, why do people still use Cline or Rucode when Cursor AI exists? I think most people use it because it's free, right? That's the main thing. So for example, if you're using Cursor, it costs money, and a lot of people are trying to look for free ways to use AI. That's why I cover so many free options like inside the YouTube channel. But yeah, that was a simple game to create. Didn't take long at all. And step by step, just went off and built it. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to get access to my community that focuses on making money and saving time with AI, feel free to get that inside the AI Profit Boardroom. Comes with an awesome community, like you can see. Also have all of our best AI automations and step-by-step workflows that you can implement for your own business as well. Someone else asks, is Fire Studio the way to go for building an app? We can run through it, all right? So let me show you an example. If we go into a new chat here, and we'll do exactly the same app in Firebase as we do for this. 1 second. All right, so let's try this. We'll get an app idea from ChatGPT, and then we'll implement that with Firebase and Visual Studio Code and see which one gives us the best outputs, right? So we'll go inside ChatGPT and say, okay, build out or give me some ideas for apps related to SEO. So for example, like backlink ROI calculator. So let's take that idea right here. And then we're going to go inside Firebase Studio and also do the same inside Visual Studio Code as well. Okay. So I'm just going to delete some of the workspaces here. And then we can type in our app idea. So build out a backlink ROI calculator, enter current traffic, blah, blah, blah. It shows how much revenue a link building campaign could generate. We'll prototype that with AI, and then we'll do the same inside Visual Studio Code. Now, the difference here is like Visual Studio Code is great with Cline for coding like projects and websites and landing pages. I haven't really seen great outputs when it comes to building out apps, but let's test it out. So inside the chat here, we'll add a new chat and we'll do the same thing. We're going to use Gemini 2.5 Pro Preview. Again, I'm going to use the paid API just for the purpose of this video. Again, you can use it for free. I've already shown you how to use it for free inside OpenRouter. So you can see the timeline popping up now. So what it's doing, so for example, reasoning, reading the file, reasoning, blah, 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 creating the index HTML. And the way that Cline operates is very different to the way that Firebase operates, right? So if we go back to Firebase Studio now, we've got the idea, so the app blueprint, the features, and also the style guidelines. So you can see how much more powerful it is for building out apps, right? If we click on prototype this app now, it will just go off and do it. GNAT says, oh, it's free. Can I code with Gemini with Cline for free? You can, but not on, I think on the experimental version you can, but not the preview version. So now it's going to ask for an API key, which we can get from aistudio.com. So let's go and grab that. The reason it needs the API key is typically because it's going to generate responses with its AI. So we're going to plug that into the API section in a second, but it will ask me for that in a minute. I can just see it coding out there. So in the meantime, let's have a look at Visual Studio Code. It's generated the app, but you can see it went straight off into building it without asking us for approval. So it hasn't come up with a name, hasn't come up with ideas. I don't think personally the design is going to look as nice, but you can see the new timeline from Cline 3.15 here. So let's run the command now, and we'll see what we get back. So it's very basic, as you can see. Whereas, for example, if you look at the output from Firebase, it looks a lot nicer. Now, what I'm going to try doing is taking a screenshot of this. I'm going to copy that screenshot, and I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code and say, use this to create the app plus design it and improve it. And basically what we're going to use is the briefing document from Firebase to create the app inside Visual Studio Code. Now, one of the biggest differences as well is like with Visual Studio Code, you're coding locally. So you're storing that project for later, but you can come back and edit it as well. So it's building out now. Then if we go back to Google Chrome, we've got the app being prototyped right there. And there we go. By the way, if you're not sure what this is, firebase.google.com, right? Studio.firebase.google.com is another way to generate apps with Gemini. So if we go back here, it's completed the task already. So it does seem to be that Visual Studio Code is much faster at coding. If we look, we've got the app back. It actually looks a lot nicer than it did previously. It's come up with the details. So that's actually a great way to code, is get the brief from Studio Firebase and then ask Visual Studio Code to create the app, like you can see. Let's just test it works as well. So I'm going to put in the monthly traffic. the conversion rate, the value per lead. Then we're going to add estimated traffic per link, 10 new links, the CTR will be 10%, just random numbers, right? Then we'll click calculate ROI. It's actually come back to us with a pretty nice app right there. Let's see if that's responsive as well. So we'll open up on mobile. Like you see, I've just switched to mobile now. And that is actually looking really good. So that's a cool way to code. Is like go into Firebase, give it the app idea, get the app blueprint, then go into Visual Studio Code, Cline 3.15, screenshot, and ask Gemini to code it out like you can see. If we come back to Firebase Studio, I would actually say the app from Firebase Studio doesn't look anywhere near as nice, right? So let's compare these side by side. So this is the app, as you can see, from Visual Studio Code, and this is the app directly from Firebase. And for sure, like the output from Cline looks a lot nicer, especially the dashboard for the campaign summary. So if I had to pick a winner, I'm still going to say that Cline is winning by a long way. But the best way to do it is get the brief and then screenshot and plug that into Visual Studio Code. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to join my community that's focused on making money and saving time and automating with AI, feel free to get the AI Profit Boardroom, link in the comments description. This comes with all my best automations, templates, agents, etc. And also an awesome community of people and weekly Q&A calls. So you can jump on the weekly Q&A calls, ask any questions you have, etc. Now, what I'm also going to do is I'll put the SOP inside the AI SEO Success Lab as well. This is a free community. You can just join, link in the comments description. I'll add it inside the classroom as the AI section. And then you can learn about how to use this and the step-by-step instructions, plus all the links inside there. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.